الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum. May the peace and blessings of God be with you. Welcome to the Voice of Islam radio show, the dynamic and spiritually stimulating show about Islam, brought to you by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We are the oldest Muslim organization in the United States, and our motto is love for all, hatred for none. Welcome back to the ladies show for the Voice of Islam. My name is Mariam, and I'm here with my co-host Ayman. Assalamu alaikum, Ayman.
Walaikum salam, Miriam. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really excited to spend the next hour talking about Islam's perspective on real and everyday issues.
Yes. And for our listeners at home who want to learn more about Islam and the teachings through the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, you can go online to our official website. That's trueislam.com, trueislam.com. You can also check out our Facebook page, Voice of Islam Radio Show. And for those who would like to talk to someone and ask questions directly, they can call the number at 1-866-Y-ISLAM. That's 1-866-Y-ISLAM. And for any other questions or comments, please feel free to email us at voiceofislamradioshow@gmail.com.
Yes, we would definitely love to hear from all of our listeners, so please contact us. So with that being said, let's jump into today's topic. Today we will be speaking about physical, mental, and spiritual health.
This is such an important topic, and I'm very actually excited to have the opportunity to speak about it for the next hour, although an hour doesn't even seem like enough time to scrape the surface of this topic.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And we're really fortunate to have experts in these fields to try and help us tackle the subject of health. But before we introduce our guests for today, let's take a quick look into the background of this topic. So we're at the beginning of the year with the holidays behind us. Many of us have made our New Year's resolutions. Hopefully we haven't broken them yet. So we were thinking about, a lot of people are thinking about getting into shape or trying to be healthier.
Right.
But something many people don't know is that Islam promotes a healthy lifestyle as an actual part of its religion. In fact, there are multiple verses from the Holy Quran promoting eating healthy food. And one example is in chapter 2, verse 168. O mankind, eat of what is lawful and good on earth. So keeping our bodies active is also promoted, and this can be seen even if you just look at the way that Muslims worship 5 times a day. It's a very physical way of worship, and you move your body into multiple positions.
Yes, and as we know, humans are very complex beings, and our mental, physical, and spiritual are all interrelated. Like as we just mentioned during our prayers, not only are we moving our physical bodies, but we're also praying with our minds and hearts spiritually. So almost as a meditation in a way.
Exactly. And to help us get the ball rolling with this conversation, we're excited to introduce our first guest. Our first guest is Nida Malik. She is a mother of 4 and has been working as a registered dietitian for 16 years. She's passionate about promoting wellness and intuitive nutrition, especially through her Instagram handle, Declutter Your Health. So go check that out. Assalamu alaikum, Nida. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam, Mariam and Ayman. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us today.
My pleasure. This is a topic that I have a lot of passion for.
Great, we're so excited. So again, like Miriam said, thank you for joining us. And we have so many questions for you as an expert in this field. So let's go ahead and just jump in. So now more than ever, especially during pandemic and COVID-19, we thought it would be very important to speak about physical health and spiritual health. So in your findings, do religions in general promote physical health?
That's a really good question. If most, if not all, religions promote a healthy lifestyle. If you were to look at the world religions, you will see that in some way or form, each religion prescribes a certain diet. They either discourage or restrict the consumption of alcohol and drugs. And many of these religions, you will see, they also practice a form of fasting. I know just a couple of weeks we passed Lent, and there are other religions that practice fasting throughout the year. And Islam, as we know, practices a whole month once a year.
Right.
Right. And also, if we look at health and religion, the relationship with it is very strong based on history, whereas it was actually, religion was a place for physical and spiritual healing. And also, if you look at the history of hospitals here in the United States, the first hospitals were actually built by religious organizations. So health has always played a very big role in all the main religions that we see today.
That's so interesting. And I had no idea about hospitals being kind of bought into the country through religion. You wouldn't think that now, but it's really nice to see that. And it's really nice to see the similarities between religions too. There's so much promoted between all religions.
Most definitely, yes. I think it was just recently that they were separated. Otherwise, they've always been linked strongly together.
Yeah, I completely agree. The Prophet of Islam told his believers that a healthy believer is better than a physically weak believer. So in this way, he was emphasizing that staying as physically healthy as possible should be a priority for all Muslims. So Anita, do you feel that physical health is more about nutrition or physical fitness?
I love this question because it's actually a very common question I get. Now, wouldn't it be much easier if we only had one thing to, focus on?
Yes.
Right? It would be so much easier. But as a theme with health, it's all about balance and harmony, and it involves a lot of different components which complement one another. So in terms of physical health, both nutrition and fitness complement each other, along with sleep and stress management. But if you were to ask me to compare from nutrition with fitness, then most definitely nutrition has a greater impact on your body composition and physique. It provides us the energy, the nutrients needed to be alive and to thrive. And when it comes to our weight, it's nutrition which is going to be playing a more important role in terms of gaining or losing weight. Now, when it comes to fitness, it plays a very vital role by balancing our hormones, by improving our digestive system, our circulatory system. It strengthens our bones, our muscles. It improves our mood. It gives us physical stamina, endurance, and confidence. And how it plays a role in our weight is more for maintenance. So both, as you can see, complement one another.
So, I feel like so much of the time we, especially I think as women, we focus so much on our weight loss and what weight we're at. But how does weight loss contribute to physical health? Like exactly, what should we be focusing more on?
Thank you for this question, because I feel like society and diet culture have placed so much importance on weight, and they have made us think that weight equates health. However, health is not related to a specific size nor a body shape. It is related to healthy behaviors. And so weight does not equate health at all. When it comes to weight, it's not the size of the body that causes diseases. It's the long-term behaviors that determine health. It's about a healthy lifestyle, which includes health-promoting foods, exercise, sleep, and managing our stress. So, one point that I would like to bring across is that we're all born with different eye color, different hair textures, different height. Similarly, we're born with different weights and body frames and body shapes. It's genetically influenced. And we were not all born to be a size 2. We all, a person with a smaller frame can have unhealthy habits and can still have chronic illnesses, can still be unhappy and suffer high blood pressure and so on and so forth. Similarly, a person with a bigger frame can have healthy habits and still be a healthy person without any chronic illnesses. It's just that we've been fed that it's the body and it's our weight.
Right. That's so important to remember and reflect on in our daily lives, because a lot of the time we're just seeing either on social media or what is the general norms that we're supposed to be the specific body type, but that's just frankly not true as you just described.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just say that when we solely focus on weight, we make decisions around food and exercise to just only manipulate the weight and body shape. But I think if we embrace health by feeling good and being healthy, then we start adapting healthy practices and in return become healthy.
100%. I completely agree. And a body is such a blessing from Allah. And as we see, the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings of Allah be on him, would show his gratitude to Allah for giving him this gift oftentimes. In fact, the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings of Allah be on him, prayed, "O Lord, make my nature as pleasing as my body." This just goes on to demonstrate for us that our bodies are truly a blessing from Allah and that our bodies assist us in fulfilling our spiritual well-being. So with this in mind, do you personally feel that there's any connection between physical well-being and spiritual well-being?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's a very deep connection. We cannot talk about one without the other. If we just look, we're called human beings. And if we just dissect that word, there's a human aspect to us, which is our physical state. And then we have a being aspect to us, which is our spiritual state. And the human state refers to the doing, the eating, the walking, the working, the playing. It's all associated with the things that we do in life. And the being is our spiritual wellness. And what that means is spirituality is just a sum of our beliefs, our values, our intentions. It's how well we're connected to ourselves and our creator. So if you just imagine it, when we're aligned to who we are and when we're our authentic self, we are less stressed, we're more hopeful, we're much happier, and that translates into our mental health and our physical health. We have better thoughts, and those thoughts create better emotions. And we have, and then I don't know about you, but when I feel good, I naturally want to do good. And I naturally want to eat better. I want to move better. And today what we see is that when we have a disconnection with ourselves, and that's what's happening a lot here, we're disconnected, not aligned with who we are, we see suffering, chaos, anxiety, stress, depression. And that is what's making us ill as a society.
That's amazing. The connection that you're making between, you know, our minds and our bodies and our spiritual states. It's really interesting because I don't think most of us think of it like that.
It's very interconnected for sure.
So it's like a circular system, right? We're all just, we have to kind of take care of each part of that.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I sometimes give the example of say, you know, if I don't eat well, I don't sleep well. And when I don't sleep well, I don't move well. And when I don't move well, I don't feel well. And then the cycle just continues over and over again. And that's where we're stuck.
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, we should try and think of small things to do every day just to try and improve that mental state too.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember reading somewhere about the power of a smile. Is there any science behind that? People say that when you smile, it kind of makes you feel better and it, you know, just makes other people happy. But is there any science behind that at all?
Most definitely. So why don't we just try it right now? If you're not already smiling, why don't you just, you know, just create a big old smile. And just that mere act, that physical act of smiling, just, you know, stimulated your brain to release happy hormones. These are the same hormones that are released when you're running or when you're happy. And that overall just changes their perspective of this moment. And just that's how interconnected we are physically, emotionally, and mentally.
That's amazing. Seriously, I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face. I'm feeling happy. Definitely need to do that often. Yeah, that's definitely something we can all do every day. So our listeners should definitely like pay attention to that. So I mean, the other thing is like as Muslims, we're taught regularly that things are prohibited in our diet. Like people might have seen their friends, Muslim friends, they don't eat pork, they don't drink alcohol. But as a nutritionist, do you feel that the food that we consume, does that affect our mood or behavior at all?
Most definitely. I'm sure you're familiar with the expression, you are what you eat. Now,
Yes.
it doesn't mean that if you eat a banana, you will turn yellow and have a peel. It's what it's meaning is that food you eat has a great impact on how you feel and behave. Okay. And if you really look at your food choices, the reason you choose certain foods is based on the mere fact that it changes your mood and your behavior, right? So, for instance, if you're a coffee lover and in the morning you choose to drink coffee because, yes, it tastes good, but also because how it affects your mood and your behavior. All of a sudden, you're energized, you're ready to conquer the day, versus if that morning you weren't able to get that cup of coffee, you're irritable, you're just like, do not talk to me, I'm not ready for the day. So you see, there's many reasons why we choose food, and one of it is the fact that it affects our moods. And you mentioned that Islam, and there are many religions that discourage the use of alcohol. And again, if we really look at the reasons why would anybody drink alcohol? Why do people use drugs? And it's for that reason, because it alters their behavior, it alters their mood, it alters their emotions. It's a means of escape, of numbing your feelings, of not wanting to feel what they're feeling. And I mean, the statistics, we could even go into that. Like if we go to CDC, statistics alone show that there's 261 deaths each day due to alcohol consumption. Because what it does is it directly affects our brain. The moment we drink something or take a substance, it alters our communication, our brain communication, which alters our coordination, our thinking, our judgment, and therefore our behavior.
This actually brings me to mind, actually, if you don't mind. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said that anything which intoxicates when taken in large quantities is forbidden altogether. So I think that's where our philosophy comes from in Islam, where, why even touch it? Instead of trying to figure out how much is too much, and so I feel like all the statistics you just said kind of just reinforce that.
Most definitely. And you will see that food brings about changes, like I said, in the brain structure. And also, I don't know if you know, but anatomically and physiologically, our brain communicates with our gut directly. So whatever, anything that we're placing into our mouths, it has a direct connection and an effect into our brain and our emotions and our thoughts. And recent studies just have shown that 90% of our serotonin receptors are found in our gut. So just knowing that alone, it's so important to think of foods that we could add to our diet, which adding like fiber, whole foods, fruits, and vegetables, they could actually help to reduce anxiety and depression. And that's something to think about.
Oh, definitely. And it's just really so fascinating how, as you're explaining, the foods that we consume communicate to our brain and our gut, because it just depends on what we choose to eat for breakfast that morning, or if people skip breakfast. It's just very fascinating, the study of it all.
No, definitely it is. I think most of the times we just think about food, the food that's in front of us, and the moment we put it in our mouths, we forget about how it's affecting us. And the moment we place something in our mouth, it's in our body for the next 24 hours, it's going through digestion. So something you ate 24 hours ago, you may not even remember, but your body is still dealing with it.
Right. That's true.
Right. We use all of our senses when we're eating. We use mechanical, we use hormonal, we use physical, all these processes are going on. So I think we definitely need to be mindful of what we're placing into our mouths.
Oh, definitely. So actually, especially during these COVID times, people are finding that their weight is fluctuating. And because we're at home more, we can't do normal things as like going to the gym. So do you have any tips for our listeners and how they could make small changes to promote a healthier lifestyle?
Yes, I think you're probably referring to the famous quarantine 15, or I mean, I just read that there is something called COVID curves now. But to be honest, none of us have been in a pandemic before. And
Right.
it has brought about many changes around us, physically, emotionally. It has escalated the amount of stress we have on ourselves. So it's only natural that our bodies would do the same.
Mm-hmm.
If we are stressed, if we have our emotions are all over the place, and physically and mentally, we have changes, our body is reacting to that. And it's very normal. And so the first thing I would say is to please realize that these changes are normal, and we need to show compassion to ourselves rather than to beat ourselves up and to reach for another diet, which will cause more stress to our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Once we figure out a new normalcy, or once we get a handle on our stresses and all the changes that are occurring, our body is very smart. It will settle down back to its comfortable weight, given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these changes some of the tips that could help do this is that you have to really be mindful of how you speak to yourself. Your body is always listening. So be positive, be compassionate, be non-judgmental. And it's really important that we structure our day and have set meal times. I often hear that people are like, we're grazing all the time, we're snacking, the kitchen is around the corner, our pantry is right in our faces. So what am I supposed to do? So basically, the reason is, why are we snacking? It could be because you haven't really had a proper meal, and your body's just asking for the extra energy it requires to deal with all the stresses during the day. So make sure you have a morning meal, mid meal, evening meal. Make sure that when you get up in the morning, have a routine. Get up, change your clothes. I know it's really comfortable to wear your pajamas or be in our loungewear.
Yes.
And I know pandemic has changed the way we dress, but it's really important because it really changes your outlook on the day. It makes you active. Get your kids into the habit too. I have my kids get up in the morning, they change their clothes, we have a morning meal. Place your running shoes next to the door. Make it accessible for you to get out if your weather permits it. Go outside, be it 5, be it 10 minutes. It's so important. Get your vitamin D in. It really improves your mood.
No, 100%.
Right. And manage your stress. Be aware of why you're eating. Ask yourself why. Am I bored? Am I stressed? Am I anxious? And try to focus on those issues. If you're bored, call up a friend. If you're anxious, seek some help. And meal prep, try to meal prep, keep one day on the week and try to make a, bulk of food so that during the week you have food to eat. Like we said, smile. And, lastly, I would say that if there's anything this pandemic has taught us, is that life is very precious. Health is important. And we really need to reevaluate what normal was and create one that has more purpose and intent.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some wise words from you. And I think they're really important for us to keep in mind at all times. I feel like we've almost become kind of used to this weird lifestyle we're living. So we forget to be kind to ourselves and to show compassion. And I have a really important question I need answering from you, Nida, which is, when I am watching Netflix and I need a snack to eat, what is a good snack for me to reach out to? Because sometimes that is where I'm eating things that I don't need to eat. I'm not necessarily hungry. You're just kind of telling yourself you're relaxing. So can you give us any tips on some healthier alternatives for snacking?
Sure. Well, first of all, you're snacking because you want to enjoy it. So food has a lot of purpose. It's for nourishment, for energy, and yes, for enjoyment. So I'd rather have you pick up something that you really enjoy and really savor it without guilt, without shame. And that way your body will actually, and your mind will actually register it, and you will not reach for more snacks. The reason we continue to reach for foods that different snacks is because we're not satisfied. We're trying, like, for instance, say you want a brownie, but I tell you, go get a carrot. You're going to have the carrot, but you're still going to want the brownie. So
Right.
you're going to have 10 carrots, then you're going to have 10 rice cakes, and then you're going to have, 2 peanuts, and then you're going to go back to the brownie. Now you had way more calories than if you just sat and had your brownie and enjoyed it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes total
Not
sense.
mentally savoring your food, like mentally acknowledging that you're enjoying this food and just not attaching guilt to it. I like that.
Absolutely. You have to enjoy it. Be in the present moment and it'll work out.
Thank you. And I love how you bring everything back about being kind to yourself and not too hard on yourselves, because it is really hard to be, do any unrealistic dieting or anything, especially these days. And yeah, no, I think these are some amazing takeaways. So Nidha, thank you so much for your time and for sharing those useful and really informative tips on how we can improve our physical and spiritual health too.
My pleasure. No, thank you for having me.
And we'll hope you'll be back on soon. I know the listeners will have lots of questions for you next time.
I would absolutely love that. Anytime.
Okay. Well, Nidha certainly gave us a lot to think about. I think one of the takeaways for me, Eamon, is that I need to smile more and be more positive to myself, non-judgmental on myself. I think that way you guilt and stress on you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's such good advice that I am going to start leaving my sneakers out so they're more accessible, and that to just go out for a quick run, it just gives that positive motivation. And I'll definitely remember the part about the brownie, because I will not forget about that brownie.
Well, now you'll tell yourself your nutritionist told you it's fine to have a brownie, so just enjoy it.
Very true. So as we mentioned, physical and mental are directly related, and mental is a huge important topic that has been brought to light, especially during our ongoing pandemic. It has been really hard for many. This is such a sensitive topic and is a necessary thing to speak up about, and it's so important to give people the access to help, and there are so many outlets and hotlines to do so. So for those struggling with mental health, please call the LA County Department of Mental Health Crisis Intervention line for 24/7 help at 800-854-7771. That's 800-854-7771.
And to discuss this really sensitive and important topic of mental health, we would like to welcome our next guest. This is Dr. Maya Khalid Jaini, who is a clinical psychologist. She has a PhD in clinical applied psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. She's been practicing for 13 years and takes a holistic approach to therapy using a wide array of techniques and therapy models. So welcome to the show, Dr. Maya. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining us today. We're so happy to have you here, and we have so many questions. So we'll probably just get straight into that. So let's go to our first question, which is that honestly, recently we've been hearing so much more about mental health and how important it is. So why do you think that it's suddenly become such a talked about issue? Do you think the stigma about mental health is decreasing?
Well, I think there's many reasons for that, right? The biggest one is the pandemic. All of us being stuck in our houses has really just allowed us more time where we're not on the roads, we're not commuting back and forth to work or, dragging our children to soccer practice. We're kind of just stuck in the house, and that allows for introspection, and it also allows for our mind to be idle. So there's issues that may arise, and there's also the uncertainty around us. I mean, we had a very difficult year, I would say, for 2020.
Yes.
And it brought up a lot of stress in a lot of people's lives. And sometimes when you don't have the coping skills to deal with the stress, you could have, the consequences of that impact our mental health. And we've seen that honestly across the nation. There's a 22% increase in domestic violence and child abuse, according to the American Journal of Emergency Medicine. It's just everywhere, and honestly, a lot of practices like mine are at full capacity, not able to accept clients. So we're seeing a huge impact from the pandemic. And I would say that that is one of the reasons we're talking more about mental health right now. And I'm hoping that because of that, we're more open and empathetic towards people that do deal with chronic mental health issues, because we all are dealing with it today.
No, definitely. I completely agree. Especially in this pandemic, it's been hard for everyone, especially when they can't gather with their families or friends, which are usually their support group. So it is definitely important to be empathetic towards all. So in your professional experience, do you feel that people with faith-based backgrounds do generally better or worse when dealing with mental health issues?
Actually, there's some research on that. And, faith and having religion in our lives can be a protective factor. Prayer has been linked to show a decrease in anxiety. And a lot of times, I don't know how much you know about mental health, but mindfulness is a really huge component of therapy. And mindfulness comes from the Buddhist traditions. Also, like in Salat and Islam and so forth, we all practice meditation, and that is important for our mental health.
Right.
Yeah, and the mindfulness is actually something they've really introduced at schools as well. I know for my children, they're trying to introduce it as almost as part of the class, which I'm really happy with. If they can start this at a younger age, it will definitely help, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, they've started a criteria of social emotional learning, which is really important for all of us, right? It's that insulating factor to allow us to handle stress. And so they're starting to teach that in schools, which is wonderful.
I definitely agree.
I did want to add, I'm so sorry. I did want to add that the American Psychological Association is also starting to include religion and religious practices in their practice and reaching out to religious organizations because for many years, psychologists and the practice of psychology wanted to kind of separate themselves. But religion is such a founding factor for all of us that it's important to incorporate that in therapy as well.
That's really interesting. Are there any reasons that they've discussed in terms of why they think it benefits the person?
Yeah, there's actually many reasons why religion can help. So first of all, it provides a social support for us, right? We have this organization where we go, especially pre-pandemic, when we would actually be able to go to our churches and mosques and synagogues and so forth. We had a group of people that we could connect with that were of similar mind. And so that created a support group, especially for older people or people that may not have large families. And it also creates optimism in us, when you know that there's somewhere else to go after death, and you have an afterlife concept, which is really common in many religions, allows for you to look at the future a little bit more optimistically instead of being like, this is the end and look at us, we're living in this pandemic and there's nothing, positive happening. There's another reason that I feel it's important, and that is that self-reflection component that a lot of religions have. It's to look within ourselves, analyze our behaviors, see how we're reacting to people, forgive others. Those things are really important for mental health as well. And it just promotes a better, self-esteem and self-value for yourself. And of course, I think the last thing that I did want to touch on was just giving back and charity and good works. And a lot of religions promote that. And that's a great way of just feeling good about yourself. So those are just some ways I think religion can improve your mental health.
I definitely agree. And do you feel like there can sometimes be any sort of negative factors from a religious kind of community or mindset?
I think the one thing I did want to say about that is that a lot of times people may think that, they can pray away a mental health issue. And just like you can't pray away diabetes, you can't pray away schizophrenia or depression or any addiction issue that you may have. You have to actually get treatment. So prayer is a great tool as long as you're also using the other tools that you have available to you.
I'm so glad you brought this up, actually, because there really is a stigma in a lot of religious communities around mental health. And I think sometimes people try to imply that if you reach out for help with mental or emotional issues, that maybe you're you're lacking in belief in God or you're not relying on God somehow. But interestingly enough, recently, our Caliph, the Caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmed, he actually discussed this topic in an interview. And he said that if we are going through any issues such as depression or anxiety or any other mental health issues, we should, of course, turn to God in prayer. As it says in the Holy Quran, it is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts can find comfort. However, he also emphasized that this does not mean that people should not seek professional help. He mentioned that it was important to get medication if needed. And he also said, and I quote, "At times people are so depressed they cannot even sleep. I often send people who are in such circumstances to psychiatrists myself. So I found that really interesting that, he really was trying to drive that point home, that they weren't contradictory.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very just encouraging, and it's an important lesson to remember, especially because, of course, we always turn to prayer first, but there are different medicines and sciences that could help us and assist us with this as well. And it is encouraged in Islam. So Dr. Maya, I actually wanted to go back and discuss a little bit more about our current state in this world that we're living in with COVID-19. Have you seen a rise in cases with mental health issues?
I have, unfortunately. Yeah, I just feel like we as a collectivist species, we thrive when we're around people. And when you take human interaction out of that, you see a lot more mental health issues. And so, yeah, we as providers are also maxed out. We honestly don't have, the space anymore to take on more. And it's been really stressful.
No,
I feel like all those helplines that they have out right now are kind of giving you a little bit of relief, just a little bit of support for people whose issues may not be as in need of a psychiatrist right now, but just someone to talk to.
Yeah, I think there's also like this growth in telehealth and hotlines and things like that. And also, local supports that you may have. So thankfully, we have a whole, community that's coming together during this pandemic.
Right. And I mean, the other thing is, as a parent, myself, I feel like a lot of us are really nervous about how the pandemic may be affecting our kids socially and mentally. So just in that mindset, like Dr. Maya, you've worked with a lot of children and teens. Is there any advice you can give us parents on how to help our kids through this tough time?
I think the best advice I can give to other parents is that this is a difficult time for all of us. It's hard on us, so of course it's going to be hard on our kids. And sometimes we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break if our kids are on screen time too long, or their assignments are falling behind a little bit, or we're worried about social skill deficits. I mean, they just don't have the same experience they had before the pandemic. I would say that just a couple of tips that I have is to allow FaceTime play dates or Zoom play dates with friends that you guys had prior to the pandemic for the kids. Just like we like to stay in touch with our friends, the kids like to stay in touch with their friends, Also incorporating more extracurricular activities. I know a lot of services are doing more virtual lessons. So there's like virtual karate lessons or ballet lessons, just to allow for normalcy and for the kids to get their energy out as well.
Yeah.
And then keeping up with sports, maybe doing practices at home if they're not playing organized sports this year. And not getting too anxious or worked up as a parent about academic performance. All the kids are struggling to learn virtually. We're not teachers and we're not meant to be teachers.
Yeah.
So try to make the school work like not a battlefield. I've seen lots of parents who just take on the stress and they're worried about their kids falling behind, which I totally understand. But I think everyone's struggling and all of the kids are struggling, and most teachers are able to understand that and look at the bigger picture. This assignment, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say this one assignment that we're battling over, whatever the assignment is, in 5 years, it's not going to matter. So think about the bigger picture with your child and the relationship with your child versus that, one assignment that you guys are working on.
So that's so true. And I just want to give a really big shout out to all the teachers too, because they are working so hard to try and figure out how to navigate this really strange world with our children. And I really hats off to them with how much they're doing. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah.
I mean, even as parents though, I feel like we're kind of struggling sometimes too. Do you have any advice for us on what we can do to kind of stay sane?
Yeah, I think, again, with the family ties and friendships, doing FaceTime sessions, I think it really helps, especially if you can get all your friends on or do a group WhatsApp, video call or whatever. It just allows you to laugh and enjoy your time and remember that socialization that you used to do before the pandemic. I've also encouraged clients to, meet in a parking lot and have a coffee with their best friend, or, do anything to get that social interaction that you may need when you need it. And it's okay. It's okay to do that. Also, it's important to engage in self-care. Take time for yourself. Do something you enjoy doing, even though you have to be, the parent and the full-time babysitter and the teacher and everything. You know what I mean? I understand. But again, you got to, keep your, it's like when you're in the airplane, right? You have to put the mask on yourself before you can put the mask on your child. So again, you got to take care of yourself.
That's a really good way to think of it, actually. I think a lot of time as parents don't do that. We think about the kids first, but you don't realize how much if you are not okay, the kids aren't going to be okay.
Yes. And it's going to bleed into your interactions with them as well, and how stressed you are when you're talking to them and so forth. And then they're going to feed off of that. So it's the two-way, traffic thing. I think the other thing I suggest is just doing something nice for yourself at least once a week, engaging in activities that bring you joy. Research says if you do something that you're enjoying, that's going to give you joy, you're going to get out of that slump or that depressed mood. Exercising is a great way to release endorphins. So, and it's the most natural antidepressant you can get out there. So include exercise in your daily routine. It can make all the difference in your mental health. And you can also...
I've been exercising with my kids, and it's actually really funny because it turns into like a kind of bonding experience too. And they have so much energy. So I feel like all these activities, like sometimes you want to do it yourself, and sometimes when the kids are there, it just kind of adds to the joy of it sometimes.
It really does. It does. And I think it's like, it gets them engaged, it gets them off of the computers and the technology and whatnot. And it's a bonding experience that they're going to remember, for a long time. Mm-hmm. Eating healthy is also so important. I know that we're all munching and we're all eating things we don't want to necessarily or won't eat when we're in the office because we have that peer pressure or we have that structure in our lives. But it's really important to keep some form of structure at home too. And omega-3s are really, really important in improving our mood. Research says that. And so anything with antioxidants or omega-3s, if you're feeling down and you're feeling depressed or anxious, make sure you're including that in your diet. I know on the East Coast, we're kind of deprived of the year-round sun you guys get, but vitamin D is so important. So I always tell my clients to get a supplement. I mean, you guys, on the other hand, have sunshine all year round. So get out there and, enjoy it.
That's true.
No, we're very spoiled out here. Just recently, you forget that it's February and it's meant to be winter because the sun's out all the time.
Well, we're surviving the blizzard of 2021 that continues to go on and on and on. So.
Oh my goodness. And so then how do you guys get out then? If you don't have the sunshine and stuff, do you just kind of just get all your coats on and get out to get some exercise, or how do you suggest that for people who don't live in California?
Well, I mean, that's why I recommend a supplement like vitamin D. I know it's really hard to get out. I mean, my exercise with my kids is usually we'll do like around the house, we'll do like rotations or circles, or we'll go up and down the stairs because it's snowing outside. There's no way. Or we'll follow some YouTube video of someone exercising. So we're indoors. But for vitamin D, I do recommend a supplement for anyone that doesn't have access to the sun. And vitamin D has been linked to depression. Like if you have a low level of vitamin D, it can display your depression in you. So if you're feeling depressed, make sure you get your vitamin D levels checked. It may be linked to that.
That's amazing because it kind of goes back to what Nidha was saying earlier too, that, what you put in your body really affects you mentally, and then it, goes back to you physically again. So all these things are so interlinked. It's really interesting.
Oh my God, yeah. I think our mind and our body are all connected. The psychology behind cognitive behavioral therapy says that it's all interlinked. So you have a thought, and you have a feeling, and then you have a sensation, and all of these things are interconnected to cause you to feel a certain way, like depressed and so forth. So it's very much, related to each other. The other tip that I had, and I think Nidha kind of touched on that with the sneakers and stuff, is try to maintain a normal, structured lifestyle as much as possible. Maintain your hygiene. That's one of the red flags for my clients, is if I'm noticing, they're on telehealth and they haven't showered, or, that's one of the signs that they're getting more depressed, honestly. So make sure you are, taking regular showers and changing and getting ready, even if you have to work from just home and you don't need to, these are normal activities and they can help us feel better about ourselves and improve the way we, interact with others as well. And for people,
sorry, go ahead.
No, the last thing I was going to say is anyone that maybe doesn't have kids or doesn't have as much going on, pick up a hobby. There's lots of online services right now that are teaching all kinds of things. There's like services where you can learn a new language or learn how to play guitar or, learn anything new. And that would make you feel like you're being more productive during this pandemic as well.
That's really great advice. And I was just saying, do you feel like what you were saying about, dressing the part, even though we're home, is that part of the reason do you think a lot of schools have the rule that children cannot be in their pajamas when they're logging in? They have to be dressed for the day.
I'm sure that's why. I don't know if that rule is on the East Coast because I've seen lots of kids in pajamas. Maybe they need to incorporate that. But it really is a fake it till you make it kind of mentality, which is really the way that we work with depression in therapy is we fake it till we make it. So you may not feel 100%, but if you keep on chugging away and you do those things that make you happy or had made you happy in the past, eventually you'll start feeling like yourself again.
That's really great advice.
No, thank you so much. Everything that you had said has just been so encouraging and such helpful advice. And I know times people do forget how important self-care actually is. Like you do have to, I did like that analogy that you used about on an airplane, you have to put your own mask on before you could put others on. And it is nice just by making small changes, like again, like having a hobby or just even getting dressed in the morning, that we can try to improve ourselves and our mental health. And that a little step does go a long way.
No, I completely agree. I know there's so many people who have told me that they didn't realize they had all these talents before because they didn't have time. And now they're going back to like art or drawing or even coloring. People are getting into those things because they're having the time to kind of give themselves. So we can try and see the positive side of it too.
Always look at the silver lining. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me too. I love sharing these, little tips.
Oh, thank you so much. And just a final question for you. If our listeners feel that they themselves or a member of their family or friend is struggling with any issues related to mental health, who should they contact or reach out to for help?
So I think this question is really important. Thank you so much for asking it. But I think it depends on the severity of what the person is feeling. If there's any risk of suicide, I would say call the crisis hotline immediately, the crisis intervention number that you had said earlier in the show. If it's even more dire than that, you can call your ER and you can take the person in. And if it's not as dire and it's not something immediate, I would recommend reaching out. There's lots of search engines online where you can find local providers and sign up for outpatient therapy or find a therapist that can help you get through this. It's very important that we get the help we need right now. And a lot of therapists are offering telehealth online, so you don't have to, go into an office and be exposed, and you can stay safely at home and get the help you need.
Oh, definitely. I think that's so important. And it is nice that they are turning to telehealth, especially because you said too, the providers are overwhelmed. So it's so nice that they're having all these different outlets that people could still reach out to and a 24/7 hotline. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this topic. It's so important.
Thank
you so much for having me.
Before we let you go, I have another question. I have too many questions for you, Dr. Maya.
Sure, ask away.
And off of this, which is, if you feel that you see signs that a loved one or friend has, signs of the beginning of something that's not just like a bad day, they're depressed or something. I'm always nervous about offending people. So do you have any tips on how to try and broach the subject? Or even do you talk to them first? Do you try and get a couple of friends together? What's the best thing to do to start that conversation?
I think there's like a multitude of different ways you can handle this. I think the best approach is just to be upfront and say, look, I'm noticing these things and I really genuinely care about you, and destigmatize therapy when you're talking to them. So instead of making it like, oh, I think you need therapy, be like, maybe, I know someone, or I myself have been in therapy before and I know it's helped me when I felt this way. Maybe you should go and, talk to somebody. It might help. you know, and so that way it's less of an attack, more of like, I'm just trying to help you. And I'm not above it, or, you know, I don't think I'm above therapy or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Right. So it's better to go directly to them rather than talk to other people, because they might feel embarrassed that you're talking about their personal issues too.
Exactly.
No, it's such a tricky subject, and I'm so glad that you joined us today and gave us these, you know, useful tips. I know a lot of people are thinking about these things right now. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always happy to help.
Thank you so much. And these conversations are such important conversations to be had, and they could truly save lives. And for that number again, for the LA County Department of Mental Health Crisis Intervention, please call 800-854-7771 for 24/7 help. Again, that's 800-854-7771.
Thanks, Eamon, for giving that information. Again, it's so important that people know it, and it is okay to ask for help. So please do. It could literally save lives, as Eamon just said. So, I mean, a point that really stuck out to me from today's conversation is earlier when Nidha explained how we are human beings with the emphasis on beings. So we're not just our bodies or our minds or even our souls. We're a combination of all those things. So I feel like it's really important to look at it in a really holistic way, so we don't think that one of those things should be left out. We should be taking care of our whole selves.
No, definitely. I really did appreciate that way of looking into it, because it really does put things in different perspective for us. Like, for instance, I wouldn't think that if I want a brownie, just eat a brownie. I'm still stuck on the brownie thing. Or just having a normal routine, like it is a holistic way of thinking. And another thing that really made me think was the question on whether religion is a contradiction or not, with not getting medical help of any sort, because being Muslims, we can mainly speak for Islam. But I have seen in many religions, praying to God for help is not an all or nothing kind of thing. Like, it doesn't mean that if you seek help, whether it's therapy or surgery or medication, that is going against the belief of God. Blessing the prayer. So Islam does promote a well-rounded approach to all problems. Yes, we believe that prayer is the most powerful tool, but it doesn't mean that we aren't allowed to use the knowledge that God has given us in science and medicine to also help our problems.
Exactly. So you can kind of use the power of both things if you are a believer in God. So I really love that. I feel like we've gained so much knowledge today and new perspective on all these things from both of our guests today. And I really hope our listeners also gained a lot from our show. Thank you all so much for spending the last hour with us. Please make sure to tune in next week at 2 p.m. for the next show of The Voice of Islam on KCAA. Assalamu alaikum.
May the peace and blessings of God be with you.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.